There are loves that don't knock softly at your door. They burst in, rearrange the furniture of your soul, and leave you forever changed. You meet someone, and something in you sits up, as if an inner bell has been struck. You keep living your days, emails, errands, the hum of ordinary hours. But a quiet current begins moving beneath everything. You try to be sensible. You tell yourself stories about timing and logistics and integrity. You say that if circumstances were different, the two of you would be laughing in a kitchen at midnight, sharing the same spoon, planning next weekend like it's a small festival. And yet, even as you accept what cannot be, you notice that your heart has grown larger, as if the very impossibility of it all has stretched your capacity to feel. You weren't drawn to them because they were convenient. You were drawn because something in their voice, their gaze, their way of being in a room reflected back unlit parts of you. It wasn't fantasy. It was recognition. You watched how they told the truth when it would have been easier to perform. You saw the courage they wore in ordinary ways. A soft apology offered without drama. A stubborn loyalty to the people and causes that mattered. A strange, beautiful tenderness with animals or strangers or quiet things. These details lodged inside you. Later, standing at a bus stop or pouring tea, you'd remember one of those small gestures and feel your own life tugged toward honesty. When you love someone you cannot have, you begin to learn patience not as waiting, but as a practice of presence. The mind wants to solve, to negotiate reality into compliance. The soul wants to witness. You caught yourself blessing them in silence. Before a meeting you hoped would go well for them. During an illness you could not help to carry. In the small victories you watched from afar. There is a kind of prayer that asks for outcomes. Yours began to ask for their flourishing. That shift was your first initiation. It is tempting to label what followed as heartbreak. But if you pay close attention, the sensation is more complicated. Yes, there was ache, the kind that sits behind the ribs like weather. But there was also color in the world that hadn't been there before. Music seemed to have extra rooms in it. Your friend laughed, and you realized how much joy you'd been leaving on the table. You started saying the real things sooner. You bought fruit you used to avoid because it felt like visiting a part of yourself you had ignored. Small, strange choices that added up to a person becoming more alive. You may have tried to cauterize this tenderness. You unfollowed, archived, took the long way around certain streets. You did it to honor boundaries, to protect integrity, to protect them, to protect you. Still, on some unsuspecting afternoon, a smell or a sentence or a slant of light would knock on the door. And there they were again. Not as a hope, not as a plan, but as a pure feeling. I'm capable of loving like this. That sentence is heavy and light at once. Heavy with the responsibility of depth. Light with the freedom of knowing that the depth belongs to you. There is also a shadow in impossible love, and it requires a gentle honesty. Sometimes we prefer the unreachable because it keeps us safe from being known in the unglamorous light of daily partnership. Fantasy edits the footage. Real intimacy leaves the camera running. If you notice that you cling to what can't be because it protects you from the risk of being ordinary and loved anyway, consider that awareness a sacred gift. It is an invitation, not an indictment. The moment you realize you've been living at the edge of the pool and are ready, finally, to wade into water that doesn't let you hide, the person you couldn't have became a living symbol, a mirror angled toward your undeveloped rooms. Their creativity nudged yours out of hiding. Their emotional honesty made your careful sentences feel cramped. Their willingness to be different gave you permission to return the sweater that never felt like you and to wear the life that actually does. In quiet ways, you began. You showed up to your art before the world woke. You spoke boundaries without rehearsing 1,000 times. You forgave someone you had been carrying like a stone. You stopped postponing your own joy until conditions were perfect. It turns out the heart can be faithful to a truth, even when it cannot be loyal to an outcome. Some nights, grief still gathers. You remember a conversation that felt like clear water, a near miss at a train door, a half smile you tried to ignore. Let it come. Sit with it as if it were a child who only wants to be held. You do not need to solve anything in that moment. The opposite of pain is not numbness. The opposite of pain is meaning. And you're making meaning every time you refuse to turn your tenderness against yourself. People will advise you to move on, as if your feelings were furniture to be hauled away. You're not moving on, you're moving through. There is a difference. Moving on pretends that the chapter didn't change you. Moving through acknowledges that you have been changed and asks what kind of person you are becoming because of it. If the answer is someone braver, kinder, more honest, more awake, then your heart has not betrayed you. It has trained you. What happens next is not always dramatic. Sometimes the miracle is ordinary. You walk into a room and feel no scramble, no searchlight in your chest. You sit across from someone new and notice relief where you used to chase fireworks. You tell the truth about what you need and discover that it doesn't scare them away. When love becomes available, it may arrive not with trumpets, but with steadiness. The text returned without the performance of indifference, the plans kept without a monologue, the hand that reaches for yours because it is natural to do so. You recognize this too as holy. If the person you loved from afar crosses your mind today, send them a quiet thank you. Not for what didn't happen, but for what awakened. Thank them for being the teacher who never meant to teach you, the chapter that rewrote your grammar of affection. Then return to your life. Let the lesson change the way you greet your neighbors, the way you listen to your mother, the way you bless your own reflection when you're too tired to be impressive. Let depth stop being a secret you keep for one and become a climate you offer to many. When doubt argues that you misread everything, recall how your life shifted. Reality is the record. You're kinder now. You tolerate less pretending. You have patience for complexity without letting it excuse cruelty. You know the difference between intensity and intimacy. You understand that love, worthy of your soul, will not require you to shrink, will not punish your tenderness, will not ask you to abandon your self-respect at the altar of almost. You trust that it is possible to be fully seen and softly held. If you need a simple practice, write for 10 minutes about the qualities you adored in them. Then write where those qualities live in you and how you will exercise them this week. The honest conversation you've been postponing, the courage to submit the work, the kindness you can offer where no one is keeping score. Love becomes less of a haunting and more of a vow when you let it shape your days. And if, somewhere in the future, the road curves and you meet a gaze that is ready, you will recognize it by the way your nervous system exhales. You will not be required to audition for belonging. The person across from you will not be perfect, and neither will you. And that will be the precise relief. You will bring to that table the generosity you learned, loving the impossible, the boundaries you learned, surviving the ache, the devotion you learned, turning longing into prayer. You will bring yourself, no longer waiting at a closed door, but opening the one that was always yours to open. Affirmations for the days ahead, offered gently and without urgency. I let gratitude complete what longing began. I choose love that shows up as well as shines. I allow the qualities I recognized in another to fully awaken in me. If you stayed with us till now, please, I request you to like and subscribe our channel. Thank you for watching.